first week, we talked about accepting God, the God that made you, and honoring Him for who He is. The second week, last week, we talked about being emptied of self to make room for God and allowing God to cleanse you. And so what follows naturally is if you have emptied yourselves of everything unnecessary and everything that is not of God, and you've allowed God to clean you, you now have an empty space, a clean slate, so to speak. And so you have to fill it with godly things, with the things that God wants you to be filled with, and that is God Himself. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. It's these things that we need to fill ourselves with. And these things are God. So He's actually told us the things that we need. We can't give these things, which is what we're supposed to do if we follow in the way of Christ. We cannot give these things unless we are filled with them. And the more you give, the more you are filled. He promises that. Now, just for fun, do something. When you're reading this, put your own name in there. And I don't want any Snickers from the back from my family. But let's try this. Patty is patient. She almost spit her coffee out. Did you see it? Patty is kind. Patty does not envy. Patty does not boast.
Some of you may feel a little bit uncomfortable. Some of you may feel, hey, this is just normal, run-of-the-mill stuff for me. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Because we said each week we're not just going to talk about these actions. We're going to actually engage. We're going to challenge ourselves to take steps of faith into transforming into the people that God wants us to be, more and more in the likeness and image of His Son. So, Patty was talking about being silent and letting God fill you, letting His Spirit fill you, and that really hit home what she said is, you can't give what you don't have. So we can't be kind and loving and patient without God's Spirit transforming us into kind and loving and patient people. And sometimes that still small voice that she was talking about, that is the hardest thing to hear because we're in a world that's full of noise, digital noise, social media, radio, TV, whatever it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to, as the band continues to softly play, we're going to just engage in a minute of silence. I'm not going to be talking. They're not going to be singing. Just as they play, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. We were going to do it via video, but this is going to work out a little bit better, is just let God speak to your heart. And then I'm going to give you some clues on ways to make this a better process, okay? But here's what I want you to do for the next minute, 60 seconds, and I know it's going to be incredibly hard for some of us, especially those under the age of like 18, tech team, to just sit still for 60 seconds with really nothing to focus on, the TV, listening to someone sing, listening to the radio, watching a video, but just allowing God to speak to your heart. I had to watch it on my phone for those people that are like, that's 62, 63, it's 1 minute, all right? So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, okay? Because oftentimes, and I need you to be perfectly honest, all right? Nothing, be perfectly honest. How many people had just dozens of stray thoughts just pop into your head during that 60 seconds? Okay, thank you for being honest, because I did too. That's why I almost forgot to set the clock. But stray thoughts just came in. Here's what I want you to do now, and this will help us into filtering out and being able to ascertain which of those thoughts are from God and which of those thoughts are stray thoughts. If you have a pen or a paper, take it out. Here's what I want you to do. If not, just take note of them. The thoughts that just ran through your head Whether it was, oh, I gotta, get more toilet tissue because of Frankenstorm, or, I gotta run to the ATM, or are they gonna finish in time? Redskins, I know they're playing, Steelers got that, okay? Whatever thought that ran into your head, or a series of thoughts, jot those down. Just write them down. And I know nobody's reaching for a pen or paper, but here's why I say write them down. The thoughts that ran through your head, a lot of them we tend to think those are stray thoughts. Those are not from God. The thought about, oh, my coworker at work, or the thought about this, the thought about that. But if you take those thoughts that ran through your head during that time of silence and line them up against what Patty was talking about, which of those thoughts are ones that line up with demonstrating kindness, demonstrating patience, demonstrating love? And oftentimes we'll try to pray and we'll try to hear God's voice, but the thought about, oh, you know what, I need to go get some milk for the neighbor next door because she can't get around, and you keep trying to push that thought out of your head, and that's a thought from God trying to tell you, go help your neighbor. Sometimes we're thinking about, oh, you know what, I need to get to work earlier because my boss has a need, and you keep trying to push that thought out of your head because you think it's interfering with what God is trying to tell me, and that may be God trying to tell you to show up earlier, to be a better witness in your life to your boss. And if during those times of silence, you just, after you're done, just start writing down, here's all the stray thoughts that came on into my head, and then line them up scripturally, you'll obviously be able to tell ones that weren't from God. Some may not be as clear, but ones that are definitely from God will be totally 100% clear.